Look at the weather.
It's beautiful here.
Non-stop rain.
Oh, man, it is a blazer out there.
It's cold and it's shivery.
It is cold.
Really coming down here.
I really enjoy your weather reports.
From the All Indiana Podcast Network, we're talking weather in a whole new way. From historical events to what's coming up, plus weather news, science, safety, fun facts, and more.
I like where this is going.
This is Weather Weekly. Weather Weekly with Wish TV Storm Track 8 meteorologist Marcus Bailey.
It is episode 99. Good to be with you here for this last week of the month of November. Hopefully you had a fantastic holiday weekend. I told you guys that I was planning on smoking some turkeys. I did two of them, two 13-pounders here. We had family in town, and oh man, they were great. They were really good, super juicy. Had some different brine mixes going on and some good rub, and it all went really well, and enjoyed the leftovers too. So that might be an annual thing for me here. I'm becoming that guy. Loving the smoking the meats here, and weather was great for it. Let me tell you, Thanksgiving had beautiful weather. Really, a lot of the weekend minus Sunday was pretty nice. And Sunday, even though it was an ugly end of the weekend, we had wind gusts exceeding 40 miles per hour at times. Picked up right at 1 inch of rainfall in Indianapolis. So it made for a very, very soggy end of the weekend. But we desperately needed that rain for sure. So good stuff. And yeah, we kind of roll into the month of December now. Still a little on the dry side, but that 1 inch of rain certainly does kind of help things here. I'm releasing this podcast a day early, just because today, Tuesday, is a significant weather day. And so I don't want to talk about it, and the event already happened. So I just kind of want to give you a preview. And those of you that will be listening, if you get your alerts and you're a subscriber, thank you first for subscribing to the podcast. On this 29th that we're releasing the podcast a day early, may give you a little bit of a heads up on what's to come here in central Indiana in terms of thunderstorms, which I'll talk about here in just a bit. But today, significant weather day potentially down south, Mississippi specifically under a moderate risk for severe weather. And I don't want to just throw caution out there. Louisiana, Arkansas, parts of Tennessee, western Alabama, all in an enhanced risk. So that's a level 3 out of 5. But the bullseye is over Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi, right into the middle of that here for this Tuesday. All severe weather threats are in play. There's actually a hatched area for tornadoes in that enhanced risk area. And again, bullseyed over Mississippi. So that's a 15% chance. Jackson, Meridian, Vicksburg, Clinton, Pearl, Mississippi, all included in that. So that is 15% probability of a tornado within 25 miles of a point. The hatched area is a 10% or greater probability of an EF2 to an EF5 tornado within 25 miles of a point. So could be an outbreak type of day. Wind is also a pretty big concern, 15% chance there in Mississippi. And hail, they have a 30% risk there. Also a hatched area, so that's a 10% or greater probability of 2-inch diameter hail or larger within 25 miles of a point there. So some concerns, obviously, and so something we will recap in the podcast later, or next week rather, which will be episode 100 as we kick off the month of December. So we'll keep an eye on that. If you're a big weather nerd, though, definitely keep an eye out. I think I've told you guys before, something I really enjoy doing. And obviously there's a lot of good Twitter follows that you could jump on. But what I always love doing is, and I have bookmarked every TV station in the country. And I just like to, whenever there's a tornado warning, I try to find out what television market that is. And then I go to check out their live stream and see how they're covering that. I still am a believer that local news in terms of weather coverage, no one does it better. I know that there is the technology is out there, that there's YouTubers out there and they get big numbers, but nobody knows a local area like a local meteorologist. Firmly believe that, and I think that's where the best coverage is. So if you're into that there, check out maybe some of the TV stations that are down there. Again, Jackson is kind of right in the heart of that. And where they may be dealing with some significant severe weather. Closer to home, we have a marginal risk for severe weather here in central Indiana. We don't have the dynamics for spin-ups or anything like that. I think wind is primarily the concern. It's about a 5% chance here in Indy for damaging winds. So that's 57 miles per hour or higher. And again, tornado threat pretty low. It's 2% down in the southwestern corner. That's around the Evansville area. So pretty much zero for tornado threat here in central Indiana. Hail threat stretches up to maybe around Terre Haute, and then the southwestern corner about a 5%. So kind of the lower end threat there for hail as well. So wind is going to be the primary concern. The window of opportunity as it appears right now, probably around 9 p.m. to 3 a.m., as these storms will start to form ahead of a cold front. Again, we're on the northern flank of that. And this cold front is a powerhouse cold front that will be making our temperatures take a huge dive by the time you wake up Wednesday morning. And so that gets me to the subject matter of today's podcast, and that's what's with the wind, and really, how does wind form and why does it get so strong sometimes? We had a pretty rough day on Sunday with some gusty winds. We've had a few of those over the last several weeks, but not all that uncommon when you get seasonal changes. So we're going to dive into what is wind, why do we have wind, and what really dictates how strong the winds are going to be. Because a day like today, the 29th, the bigger story may not be any threat for severe weather, although I don't want to just throw that away because it's always a possibility. And even more concerning because it's going to happen late at night and it's late November, so people aren't necessarily thinking severe weather. But I think the bigger story today is going to be the winds and the wind gusts, non-thunderstorm wind gusts, which means everybody's probably going to see some pretty nasty winds at some point here throughout the day and maybe even into early Wednesday as well. So we're going to talk all things wind. That's coming up next here on Weather Weekly.
Audible's romance collection has something to satisfy every side of you. When it comes to what kind of romance you're into, you don't have to choose just one. Fancy a dalliance with a duke, or maybe a steamy billionaire. You could find a book boyfriend in the city and another one tearing it up on the hockey field. And if nothing on this earth satisfies, you can always find love in another realm. Discover modern rom-coms from authors like Lily Chu and Ali Hazelwood, the latest romantasy series from Sarah J. Maas and Rebecca Yarros, plus Regency favorites like Bridgerton and Outlander. And of course, all the really steamy stuff. Your first great love story is free when you sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com/Wondery. That's audible.com/Wondery.
Episode 99. We're talking wind here today. I think that due to the fact that, you know, the day I'm recording this, we're anticipating some pretty strong wind gusts, maybe not advisory criteria, but close. Parts of the state are under wind advisories here for this Tuesday, November 29th. And we had a pretty good bout of wind last Sunday as well. And then we've had our fair share of some pretty blustery days here and there over the last month or so. I thought it might be a good subject matter to bring up. I don't think I've really actually spent some time on why is it? But, you know, there's some days that are, you know, calm and quiet as can be. And then you've got days where you've got 55 mile per hour wind gusts. So what gives? Why does this happen? Well, basically it comes down to a couple of things. All right. It comes down to temperature and air pressure, which are somewhat related. All right. So you think, well, why would temperature, you know, make an issue and make a difference, and how is it all connected? All right. So basically the gases that are in the atmosphere, and they do some different things when you get some temperature changes. So when you're able to warm up the air, all right, the molecules in the air, basically they spread out and they rise. Warm air rises. And that then also creates low pressure. Low pressure air rises. All right. Opposite happens when it's colder air. When the air is colder, you get the molecules to kind of pack in together and the air becomes heavier and it sinks. All right. That's why, when high pressure, we're under the influence of high pressure, it's usually very quiet weather, right? You don't have any cloud cover or very limited cloud cover. It's clear skies, pleasant weather. High pressure, sinking air, okay, means stable. Low pressure, rising air, that's when you get clouds, that's where you get storms, that kind of thing. So now if you're kind of think of a weather map. And when we show weather maps, we've got H's and L's all over the place, right? Highs and lows all over the place. So the sun does not warm molecules or air evenly. It's uneven because it hits the earth at different angles, and it hits different parts of the earth. It interacts, or the molecules, the air, the temperature, interacting with mountains and water and oceans, lakes, that kind of thing. It all is very uneven. And I think I've mentioned in many podcasts before, and I remember in just basic meteorology 101, the earth is always in a constant battle of trying to equalize itself. Okay? Trying to equalize itself. So, how this is all related. Temperatures leading to different pressures. I mentioned that when you have warmer air rising, you have pockets of low pressure. When you have cooler air sinking, it is high pressure. So basically, you've got these areas of high pressure and low pressure, and they're all over the world, right? It's not just here in North America, the United States, but it's all over the world, over open water, over land, over mountains, everywhere, okay? So anywhere is either under the influence of high pressure or under the influence of low pressure. So this is where the wind comes in. So these gases, the air, will move from high pressure areas to low pressure areas. The bigger the difference between the pressures, the faster the air will move from the high to the low pressure. And that is the wind that we experience. All right. So why does it need to move? All right. Again, it goes back to what is called diffusion, okay, which is basically what I just mentioned, that the earth is always trying to equal itself out. I think a good case in point, and it doesn't always work out this way, but here on the 29th, we are going to experience temperatures near 60 for a high. Now, that doesn't, throw away that it's the end of November. That doesn't make much of a difference. Our average high should be around 46. That's not the big deal. The big deal will be we hit a high of 60, and within a span of probably 12 hours, our number will drop 25, maybe almost 30 degrees in some spots. So you have a huge swing. I mentioned this powerhouse cold front that will come through. Yes, that colder air has high pressure involved with it, and so it's a very strong area of high pressure. In addition to that, you have a pretty strong area of low pressure that is sitting down toward the Gulf. So if you were to look at a weather map, that not one that we typically show on air, but it is we'll show, lows and highs, cold front, warm fronts. But within those, you have what's called isobars. And what those isobars do, and I'm trying to visually explain this to you in an audible sense, but you can go online and look at surface plots and that. these are like, they're not necessarily always circles, but kind of in a round sense around areas of high pressure and areas of low pressure. And the more tightly compact those isobars are together, that's what signals how quickly the pressure is changing over a distance. Does that make sense? So where you have that, obviously you have, it's usually indicative of a stronger high or a stronger low. And within that, where you have the real tight isobars, that's where you're going to have some really strong winds. So that is basically what, that's how we as meteorologists forecast that. I'm just looking right now at basic surface, so we've got this low that basically is all sorts of wound up. The actual low in itself by Tuesday afternoon is going to be in eastern Iowa. So on the north end of that low, it's got the cold air on the back end of the front, and they're going to get heavy snow from Minnesota, Wisconsin, UP of Michigan. On the front end, and that includes us here in Indiana, we get showers and thunderstorms. But you've got a huge ridge of Canadian high pressure that is then moving in back behind. It's wedging itself behind. The center of that high is back toward northern Montana by Wednesday morning. And so it's a very, very cold high combined with this very warm low that's yanking in the 60-degree temperatures for us here in Indiana. So that's why you've got the very windy conditions, and why we'll probably stay windy. Maybe not as windy, but still pretty blustery through Wednesday. It takes time to kind of equal that all out. And then eventually we'll be under the rule of that Canadian high, which will be by Thursday. We stay cold, but then we're calmer. We've got that sinking air overhead, so the winds should be a little bit more quiet. But I think it's also worth noting, and we'll talk more about this in the forecast after the break, but our temperatures are going to bounce back up to the 50s. So because of that, and we'll have some weak lows that are just going to be undulating around, you're likely going to ramp up the winds. It will be a little breezy, not like what we experienced Sunday or what we anticipate here for Tuesday night into Wednesday, but breezy nonetheless for Friday into Saturday. And then we probably will crank up the wind machine again Saturday or Sunday night, heading into Monday and Tuesday. You got another storm complex and some really chilly air by midweek. So it's these fluctuations. We can get wind anytime, right? And we will get it in the summer when you get some of these temperature changes. It doesn't seem as extreme, both in the winter and in the summer, because you're already kind of at a consistent temperature, right? I mean, yeah, you'll have some days that are in the 90s in the summer, and then you fall back to maybe the upper 70s and lower 80s. So, and in between that, you'll get maybe some gusty winds, but it's still comfortable. It's shorts and t-shirt weather, either way you look at it. But you could still have some pretty extreme differences there. Same thing in the winter, the dead of winter. We're talking, January and February, when you don't really get, very mild days in the Midwest. You may get like a 40-degree day, but then on the back end, you may get a 10 or a 20-degree afternoon. You can get some pretty nasty winds in between those as well. So you really feel more extreme differences, and you get these a little bit more often in these transitional periods, spring and fall, right? I know we're technically in wrapping up fall and getting ready to go heading into meteorological winter here. And a lot of people think holidays, Thanksgiving's over, you're in winter. We're not. Meteorological winter won't kick off until the end of this week, and calendar winter won't be until closer to the holidays. So it's still technically fall, and will be fall for a while here. So, this is a transitional period. We're coming out of summer, we're going into winter, and that's what the fall is. And so you get a lot of these big swings with temperature, and that creates the pressure differences. And that's why you get the winds, and we get some strong winds at that. So hopefully that maybe answered the question in terms of where does wind come from? Why do we have it? Why does it get so strong? So there you have it. We're going to look ahead to your forecast. It is active. Yep, we got a few more windy days ahead of us and maybe even a big cool down here as we roll into the first full week of the month of December. We'll have that forecast next on Weather Weekly. Here's a look at the forecast as we put the wraps up on the month of November and head into the month of December. And kind of some ups and downs. You got some interesting swings coming up. Obviously, we spent some time in the beginning of the podcast here with the threat for storms here for this Tuesday night on the 29th. And then a sharp chill coming in on Wednesday and Thursday. I think Wednesday, you're still mixing in some of those winds. It's not going to be as bad as what we had Tuesday night. But in the wake of that cold front and what we were just discussing about those changes in pressure and temperature there, as high pressure not completely centered overhead, you're still going to be kind of breezy, I think, through your Wednesday. Highs will be in the mid-30s, but I think we gradually see those numbers dip down in the lower 30s for the afternoon. We'll clear out, but gusts maybe 25, 30 miles per hour will likely keep chills into the upper teens and low 20s for your Wednesday. I do think Thursday is going to be a quieter day. Still chilly, numbers into the mid-30s. And then Friday will bounce back. We kind of level off the pattern a little bit. We're back to the low 50s, I think, for Friday, Saturday. And we're close to that on Sunday. We have a brief little shot for showers, a weak cold front that could bring the temperatures down just a bit. It's just scattered rain on Saturday. We, again, may turn a little breezy at times. Not like what we've had these past couple of rounds here. And then we start to kind of bounce back a little bit for Monday and Tuesday, although I think it gets a little active. We'll have some chances of showers for Monday and Tuesday. Early in the week, we'll be in the upper 40s. Right now, it does appear that we've got another significant shot of chilly air, and this one may stick for a while. Just looking at some of the ensembles, they're all kind of coming together and showing highs in the 30s starting the 7th, next Wednesday, and maybe not even making out of the 20s for part of that period, maybe Thursday or Friday. And I don't really see us warming, at least from some of the models, getting out of the 30s at all going into the weekend, the second full weekend of December, the 10th and the 11th. And then heading in through the middle of the month even, all taking you all the way to the 15th, numbers into the low to mid 30s and overnight lows low to mid 20s. So some really chilly stuff. Now that's coming off the GFS. The European ensemble doesn't take you out that far. I can go all the way to basically next Friday, the 9th, with what we typically like to use as the national blend of models. And again, it has at least 3 of those days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, highs into the mid-30s, lows into the low to mid-20s. So you're seeing some consistency there with the long-term chill. The 8 to 14-day outlook shows some decent, I wouldn't call them strong, but decent signals that we're going to be below average. That would take us, obviously, through the 12th. So it's not a slam dunk, but there are some signs for that, and we're kind of near normal in terms of precipitation goes. Going ahead and look through the month of December, there are no real indications on which way we're going. Equal chances to go above or below in terms of temperatures, likewise with precipitation as well. We'll talk more about, obviously, the December outlook coming up in next week's podcast, as we typically do. But does look like there is some cold settling in. So that will then beg the question, are we going to be able to throw some snow in the mix? Obviously, we can only get you to around the middle of the month. Very difficult to see anything past that in terms of trends, especially with precipitation. But one ingredient you need for a white Christmas is you need the cold. And it's something that's been lacking the last several years. It looks like we're at least going to get the cold for the mid-month. Now, will it hold for the next 10 days after? We'll see. We'll keep an eye on it. And then obviously you got to add maybe an active pattern to throw in those snow chances. But there may be at least some glimmer of hope for that. So something we'll keep an eye on. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's podcast, episode 99. Can't believe we've done 99 of these. And we'll hit triple digits next week. We greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate you. This was kind of just done on a whim a little bit here, and didn't know how long this would last or how many people we would have listening. But there are a few of you that listen, and we see those in numbers, and I know there are several of you that subscribe, and I greatly appreciate that. It was not anticipated or expected, but love to have the opportunity to talk to you guys, and I appreciate you guys listening to this old bald guy flap his gums a little bit sometimes and nerd out about the weather. While you're here, make sure to check out all the great podcasts, all part of the All Indiana Podcast Network. Also, if you have any ideas, I'd love to hear about them. If you have a subject matter that you want addressed, shoot me an email, marcus.bailey@wishtv.com. I'm also on social media, Marcus Bailey Weather on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter and Instagram as well, Marcus Bailey, at Marcus Bailey on both of those platforms as well. Have a wonderful week. We will talk to you again next week for episode number 100. God bless.
Discover more from Storm Track 8 Weather and Wish TV. Online at wishtv.com and when you follow Wish TV on Facebook. Plus, be sure to check out more great podcasts from the All Indiana Podcast Network now at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.